Chapter 2. Hunting a Santa Claus. Poor Domingo. The little burro was so confused he did not know which way to run. Reaching the lakefront, he raced along the shore for a few yards, then turned into the Smith's backyard. All the children except Joey Brill joined in the chase. Dave Meade caught Domingo by his ribbon bow, but only succeeded in untying it. The burro dodged him. "Stop! Please stop!" Pam shouted. But Domingo merely raised his head and went on. "He's headed for Sunfish Cove," Ricky panted. He hoped one of the skaters would catch Domingo. As the frightened animal crashed through some bushes, he found himself looking straight at several skaters. Seeing him, they started to laugh and point. This seemed to startle Domingo. Before he could decide what to do next, Pete rushed up from behind and grabbed the red ribbon. "There, boy," Pete said soothingly. "Nobody's going to hurt you." Soon all the children who had chased him and many of the skaters crowded around. "Say, he's keen. Where'd you get him? What's his name?" several asked. Some of the Hollisters' other school friends waved at them from the shiny ice, and one boy shouted for Pete to bring the burro down. Pam carefully led the animal down a little slope to the lakeside, where a number of youngsters were warming their hands around a small bonfire. "He's a swell pet," a boy named Kin said admiringly. "I don't think so," came a shrill voice. Everyone turned to see Will Wilson, one of Joey Brill's friends. Will, who was oversized for his age, always sided with Joey against the Hollisters. Now he made a face as he approached on his skates. "Let's pin the tail on the donkey," he said, grabbing Domingo's tail. "Let go of him," Holly scolded. "Okay, I'll pull your pigtails instead," the big boy teased. But he did not come any closer, for one look from Pete convinced Will that he had better not try it. As Will skated off, he tried to do a figure eight, lost his balance, and fell flat on the ice. Everyone laughed, loudest of all Ricky. Will picked himself up, red-faced. Angry, he shouted, "I still say he's a mangy old burro." "He is not," Ricky defended the Hollister's pet. "He's the best burro in the whole country." "If he's so good," taunted Will, "let's see him skate." Holly held her head high. "He can skate," she bragged. "Ha! Well, what are you waiting for? Let's see him skate then," Will said. "I'm sorry," Pam said, stepping forward. "We can't put skates on Domingo. He might fall." "Then you're afraid," Will taunted the Hollisters. "Yes, I'm afraid of hurting our burro," Pam replied firmly. "Nobody should harm animals." "Who can hurt that dumb old critter?" the boy scowled. "Here, I can tie my skates on his front feet." As Will approached Domingo, Pete reached out and grabbed his arm. "Stay away from our burro," he warned the bully. One glance convinced Will that Pete meant what he said. "Okay," Will retorted, trying to laugh. "Can't you take a joke?" Just then, several children standing nearby started to giggle, but not at Will Wilson. They were watching Ricky and Holly, who had borrowed 2 pairs of skates and were attaching them to Ricky's hands and feet. "Ricky, what are you doing that for?" Pam burst out. "I'm going to ice skate on all fours instead of Domingo," he replied with a grin. Ricky bent over and made his arms and legs go up and down like a donkey. As the onlookers howled with laughter, he slipped and slid over the ice, finally falling on his stomach. "Oof!" the redhead exclaimed. "I'm glad we didn't put the skates on poor Domingo. Look what happened to me." Pete and Pam helped their brother up and unfastened the skates from his hands. "Come on," Pete said. "It's time to go home." The children led Domingo back to their garage, put him in his stall, and fed him some oats. But before they went into the house, Sue pulled the animal's head down close to hers and whispered in his ear, "Won't you please tell me who YIF is? The one that put the note on my Domingo?" At the dinner table that night, Ricky's ice skating adventure was repeated. Mr. Hollister laughed. Then he, in turn, began to talk about the Christmas decorations he was using at the trading post. "We have wreaths and other decorations," Mr. Hollister said, "but still the place lacks something. Have you any suggestions?" "I know what your store needs, Dad," Pam said. "A big make-believe Santa Claus with his sleigh and reindeer. You could put it on the roof of the trading post." Mr. Hollister raised his eyebrows in surprise, then said, That sounds like a good plan." "We could fill the sleigh with toys for poor children," Holly added. The thought of having Santa Claus and his reindeer on the roof of the one-story trading post building excited all the youngsters. Suddenly, Pete snapped his fingers. "Dad, how about selling cheaper than the regular price any toys people might want to give to the poor children?" Pam clapped her hands. "We could deliver them Christmas Eve." "And be Santa Claus's helpers," Holly said excitedly. "All your ideas are fine," Mr. Hollister agreed. "But first we should have to find Santa Claus, his sleigh, and reindeer. Let's call Indy Rhodes, and then check with Tinker at the store to see if they know where we might buy a complete outfit." Tinker was the kind old man whom Mr. Hollister had employed when he opened the trading post. Indy Rhodes also worked at the store. He was an Indian who had come from New Mexico. "Please let me phone them," Ricky begged. "All right." Ricky hurried to the telephone, dialed Indy's number, and eagerly waited. Ricky loved Indy and his dog Blackie. They had been good friends ever since the Hollister children had untied a tin can from the dog's tail after a mean boy put it on. "Hello, Indy," Ricky said when the man answered. He quickly explained what the Hollisters wanted to do at the trading post and asked Indy if he knew anybody who sold Santa Clauses, sleighs, and reindeer. "Well, that's quite an order," the Indian said. "I'm afraid I don't know anyone in that business, but Tinker's lived in Shoreham all his life. Suppose you call him." Ricky said he would do this, and hung up. Then he telephoned Tinker. The elderly man was at once interested in the plan. "Yes, I know somebody who makes models like that," he said. "The man lives in Clariton. His name's Greer, but he's usually sold out of Santa Claus equipment by this time." "We'll try him anyway," said Ricky. He thanked Tinker, then told his family about Mr. Greer. Pam picked up the telephone book and looked in the Clariton section. Sure enough, there was a Mr. Greer, listed as a model maker. "I'd better talk with him," Mr. Hollister said, and his daughter gave him the number. All the children waited eagerly while their father spoke to Mr. Greer. "You say you have just one left?" he asked. Yes, fine. Tomorrow, early in the afternoon. Goodbye." "Yikes!" Ricky shouted, and all the children besieged their father with questions. "How big is the Santa Claus? How many reindeer? Can we keep it for good?" Mr. Hollister laughed. "I can't answer a single one of your questions, but you'll find out tomorrow." Mr. Hollister turned to his wife. "Elaine, let's say we all drive out there after dinner tomorrow." "Fine," Mrs. Hollister agreed. Then she put her arms around Sue and Holly, saying, "Time for you two little girls to go to bed, and Ricky, too." It was the custom in the Hollister home for Pam and Pete to stay up a little later than the others. "Let's go see if Domingo's all right, Pete," Pam suggested. They turned on the garage light and hurried outside. The children could hear a thumping noise and found their new pet kicking at the door. He had knocked over his stall made of crates and scattered the straw. "Why, Domingo!" Pam exclaimed. "I guess he doesn't like it in here," said Pete, starting to fix the stall. "Listen, boy, you'll just have to get used to things away from the ranch," he told the little donkey. Suddenly, Pam had an idea. Dolores told me burros get lonesome, she said. That's probably what's the matter with him. Why don't we bring Zip out here to keep Domingo company? But Zip's our house watchdog at night, Pete reminded his sister. That's right. Then how about Cuddly and her mother, and the rest of the kittens? Cuddly's mother was named Whitenose. Pam ran back to the house to bring the cat and her 5 babies out to the garage to keep Domingo company. How delighted the burro seemed to see them. He lay down on the straw contentedly with Whitenose and her family. On the way back to the house, Pam said, "We'd better write to Mr. Vega for Sue and thank him for Domingo." "Let's do it right now," Pete said, opening the door. Pam had written thank you notes before. As she sat down at the desk, Pete said, "Be sure to ask Mr. Vega if he knows about the mysterious verse we found on Domingo's ribbon." Pam wrote a neat, newsy letter and signed the names of all the Hollister children. By the time she had sealed the envelope and stamped it, Pete appeared with his jacket on. "I'll mail it at the box on the corner," he said, and hurried out of the house. When Pete returned a few minutes later, he heard the telephone ringing. Pam was already on her way to answer it. "Hello?" the girl said. Pete paused to learn who the caller was. He saw his sister's face grow pale. "Who is it?" he asked, worried. Pam put down the receiver and turned to her brother, a frightened look in her eyes. "Pete," she blurted, nearly in tears, "we can't keep Domingo."